Hello, my name is Mike Mollenhauer, and I'm the project manager for the SHRP InSight web application. Thanks for taking the time to check out this quick tutorial and demonstration. The InSight project has been funded by the SHRP Naturalistic Driving Study and provides a public access portal to information about the program. This includes how and where the data were collected, what and how much data are available, and how researchers may gain access to it. In short, it's meant to be the first stop for anyone interested in exploring and using this naturalistic dataset. So let's take a look at the application and what is available here.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do to access the website is to type in the URL address into our browser, and you can see I've already done that. It's at insight.sharp2nds.us, and that brings us to an external homepage that talks a bit about what is available on the website and what you can do here. If you need an account, you can go through the process of registering by clicking the Register Now button, or you could explore as a guest. You have limited access to data as a guest, but you can see some of the background information and some of the data dictionaries. By registering, you get access to user forums where you can pose questions to the SHRP2 NDS data management staff. But if you go through one more level and go through IRB training, you can upload your certificate and apply for qualified researcher status. And once you have that qualified researcher status, you'll have access to all the information that is available through the website. I've already created an ID under this email address, so I'm going to go ahead and just sign in so we can take a look at the website. And you can see that takes us to an internal homepage. There is a section for what's available on the website again, a little bit more description of what's there, plus some quick links to get to data rapidly under each category. There's a What's New section that shows what has been updated recently or what might be new on the website. In the upper right, you can see there's a user panel, and if I click to expand that, it shows me what name I'm logged in under, my user ID, and then also what my registration status is. And again, Qualified Researcher gives you access to all of the data that's available, so I recommend that you do go through all the steps to get there, because it makes the website much more meaningful and useful. If you want to change your password, you can do that here, or if you need to update any of your profile information, such as your affiliations or any of your contact information, you can do that here as well. The navigational layout of the website is really pretty simple. There are kind of three main pages that you can access through these buttons up in the navigation bar. The first is the background page. This has information about the study, where it was conducted, what data was collected, what kinds of technology were used to collect the data. So that's a good resource to look at. There's a data access guide which talks about if you want more in-depth access to the data, what a data sharing agreement is, what process you need to follow, and what data protections need to be addressed as you access that data. As well, there are data dictionaries here for each of the individual data sets that were collected from the study that gives you a sense for what all the variables are, how they've been operationally defined, and what the categories of response might be for some of them. We'll go into that in a little bit more detail later. There are also sample drives or example drives that were conducted using the system and driving between the Blacksburg and Washington, D.C. area using Virginia Tech employees, and they give you a sense for what you can see within the different video views, what the different sensor data looks like that might have been collected by the system. And so those are up there. It gives you just a good sense for what that data is going to look like without having to expose any of the personally identifying information from any of our participating drivers. There is also some validation data for the head pose tracker that you can look through and download if you have an interest in any of that. I mentioned that there's a forums section, so if I click on the forums option, you do have to click a button the first time in that signs you in through your with your credentials into the forums application. You can post questions here to the data management staff so that they can respond to you if you have questions about, let's say, where data might be found or what the format of the data is, or questions like that. You can post them here. The final navigation destination on InSight is the data page. The data page is probably the one that most users are interested in when they come to the website, as it provides direct access to data collected under the SHRP2 Naturalistic Driving Study. There was quite a variety of data collected over the course of the study, and as you can see, we have it divided up into a number of different categories, including vehicles, drivers, trips, and events. The vehicles section includes information collected by the installation technicians as they installed the data acquisition systems on the vehicles that participated in the study. These include things like the condition of the vehicle, the safety systems that were available, and the entertainment systems that were on board. The drivers section includes information collected from the drivers while that equipment was being installed. and they filled out things like a demographic questionnaire, a driving history questionnaire. There's information about their psychological and physical capabilities, as well what their participation experience was during the program. So there's quite a variety of different driver assessments available to characterize the drivers that were involved. For each continuous data file that was collected during the SHRP 2 naturalistic driving study, a trip summary measure has been generated. The trip summary measure seeks to characterize the type of driving that occurred during that continuous trip. It is meant to really kind of help a researcher seek out and find trips that might pertain to a particular research question. And as you can see right now, we have about 2 million records within the trip summary table. In the end, we expect to have closer to 5 million, so this is a work in progress, and trips are being added all the time. There are 2 more releases that occurred during the year in 2014 that will fill out the remainder of the trip records. So within the trip summary table, each row represents information about a particular trip, and you can see we characterize a number of different variables, including the maximum acceleration, deceleration, the duration of the trip, time moving, time not moving, the number of accelerations and decelerations that occurred over a threshold, as well as information about the availability of certain information on the vehicle network, including things like seat belt, whether ABS is available, whether turn signal activations are available, and so forth. In addition, there are some radar-derived variables here, including the amount of time and mileage spent within certain following distances and in certain headways. And in the future, within the releases that occur in the rest of 2014, there'll be additional information added about how much of the trip was spent in various roadway classes from the roadway information database, as well as whether or not the driver might have been using their cell phone during the trip as well. So it's a wealth of information that's really meant to help point drivers to trips that might contain content that pertains to their research question. A very helpful function within the website are these blue info buttons. Clicking on an info button will open a data dictionary page that pertains to the base page that you have open at the time. Within the data dictionary panel, you see that there's information about the data set itself, some background information about it and how it was collected. And there's also a list of variables that are contained within the data set. By clicking on one of these variables, you can get an operational definition of what the variable is, what the units are, and then any processing notes that were collected or captured when that variable was being created. So these are very helpful and allows you to better understand the data that are here. There's also a search function within these panels. If there's a variable you're interested in, but you're not exactly sure what the name is or where to find it, you can type in some keywords here and then pull up a list of those that match. For example, if I was interested in seat belts, I could type the word seat, and it would narrow down my list those that are those variables that exist that have the word seat within them. Okay, we'll go ahead and close this table down for now. Go back to the data page. The last category I want to talk about are the events. There are really 3 different kinds of events that we're going to be displaying through the InSight website, and those include crashes, near crashes, and baseline events. As continuous files were collected from vehicles in the field and transferred to the data storage facility at Virginia Tech, a variety of triggers were run on them in an effort to identify crashes and near crashes. When an event was found that matches the operational definition of a crash or near crash, it was manually reviewed by an analyst and classified as to its type, severity, and the conditions surrounding the event. Currently, there are about 350 near crashes and about 150 crashes available through the website. We expect that there might be closer to 800 or 900 crashes and several thousand near crashes available by the end of 2014. In addition to the crashes and near crashes, around 30,000 baseline events have also been randomly selected from the continuous drives and classified by the video analysts. These events are included to provide researchers with the ability to analyze event frequency and control for overall exposure to various conditions of interest. The entire record for each event can be found in the table shown here. If you want to view one of the events, you can simply click on the row within the table that contains the event you're interested in. Click on the gray event viewer bar at the top, and it will load the event, and it does start out kind of in a play mode. On the left-hand side, you can see we have the forward video view available, and on the right-hand side, we've selected a number of different time series variables that were collected during the trip, and you can hover over the variable name to get the operational definition. If you want to switch which variable is graphed at the strip chart graph at the top, you can do that by clicking on the variable name, and it'll repopulate the graph. When you do play back, that's the strip chart is kept synchronized with the video, where the green line is showing current time and the red line shows the event start time, or when the event was logged. If I'm interested in what the manual video analyst, how they classified this event, I can click on the Event Analysis tab. There's a very useful final narrative in here that describes what was happening during the event, but as well all the other fields are filled out and available here. If I have a number of events that I want to run through in sequence, I can choose Next Event, and it'll populate the next one to where it begins playing when you hit Next, and you can hit Previous as well. Alright, so I'm going to close down the Event Viewer tab now, and we'll switch over and go back to the data page, and we'll talk about the Query Builder functionality. The Query Builder functionality allows a user to build a set of conditional statements using variables from any of the available datasets to return a set of trips, vehicles, participants, or events that satisfy a conditional criteria. To make this process easier, InSight provides a graphical query builder that allows users to select variables, provide conditional criteria, and express Boolean logic that make the query development process easier. I think the best way to show this functionality is to walk through an example of developing a very simple query. Let's say we want to know how many trips in the SHRP2 NDS dataset contain aggressive driving. And for this example, let's assume that we're only interested in trips from passenger vehicles and that we're going to operationally define aggressive driving as any trip resulting in a maximum speed greater than 90 miles per hour, a max longitudinal deceleration less than 0.8 Gs, or lateral accelerations of greater than 0.7 Gs. Once we've loaded the Query Builder page, you can see that it consists of a large working area with a single grouping control in the upper left. To add to a variable to our query, we can click on the plus sign to display a list of variables. Our first conditional statement will be to select only trips from passenger cars. I happen to know that there's a variable under the vehicle set called vehicle classification where we can make that selection. If I click on vehicle classification, it adds the variable. Now if I click on all values, I can go in and select none and then select just the car category so that we only get passenger cars returned within our query. Now we'll add the remaining conditionals to select the trips we're interested in. Since we've stated that we want trips where any of the three aggressive criteria are true, I will add a new conditional grouping and change its type to any. In this interface, the Boolean equivalent of AND is an all, and the equivalent of OR is any. You can toggle between them by clicking on the link within the box. Now that I've got the new grouping and it is set to any, I can add the additional variables and their values. So I'll go through that process of adding each given the query conditionals that we specified. So I'm going to close down the vehicles, go to the trip summary variables, and the first one is the max speed. We said that we would look for max speeds where the speed is greater than or equal to 90 miles per hour. I also want to add another conditional where the maximum deceleration is less than or equal to negative 0.8 Gs. And we also want the lateral accelerations greater than 0.7 Gs. And within this interface, they are expressed individually, both minimum and maximum. So we will put it in one statement for each. So the maximum lateral will be greater than or equal to 0.7 Gs. And then the minimum would be less than or equal to negative 0.7 Gs, giving us both lateral accelerations in both the left and right direction from the vehicle. Okay, so now we have our conditional statement set up. So to read through this, with the all here at the top level, this is essentially saying and. So all of these items must be true. It must be a passenger vehicle classification, and any of the following then also must be true. The max speed can be greater than or equal to 90, maximum deceleration less than or equal to negative 0.8, or maximum lateral deceleration greater than 0.7, or minimum lateral acceleration less than negative 0.7 Gs. Okay. Now, before I submit this query, I would like to show you how you can save and load and share the query. So if we wanted to save at this point, we can hit save and we can type in a new name. I'm just going to call it query 5 or something. And we'll just say that this is a test query for now. If I save that, if I open the load box, I can see that I can load that up again at any time if I would like to. And then if I also wanted to share it, I can click on the share button and it'll load a dialog that has a link in it. If I paste this link into an email and send it to a colleague who is also a qualified researcher in InSight, they can click on that link and then log into InSight, and it will load up the exact same query so they can issue it themselves and see the same results that you see when you made the query. All right, so let me go down and hit submit, and we'll submit this query. So the query has gone out to the server, and now it's returned us some results. So of the original 3 million trips, roughly, that are in this database at this time, roughly 25,000 or so have been returned that match our criteria. And then there's also 1,700 or so drivers that are associated with this, and then around just shy of 1,500 events that are also associated with the trips that were returned. So there's a number of different ways of viewing these results. First, and the default way is a cross tabulation. The crosstab allows you to set up a table of results that shows you how many records fall into each of the categories for each of the variables chosen. If I want to change those, let's say I want to look at a different variable along the column axis, I can choose the other variable, update the crosstab, and it'll tell me how many of the trips fall into each of the two categories. If I want to set this up to be a univariate distribution, I can choose both of them to be the same variable, so in this case max speed. And if I update the crosstab, it's going to show me how many of the trips that were returned fall in that had a max speed within any of the individual categories. And I can view these as either the number, the n number that are returned, or as a percentage of the results returned. Now if I wanted to view this also as a graph, I can click on the graph page and it'll display the graph for whatever set of information I have set in the controls to display at that time. I can also choose to display the number of participants, vehicles, or events. Keep in mind that if I choose something like participants, that a single participant might have a trip that falls into multiple categories. So they may have had a trip that fell into the very high speed range, or they may have had a trip that fell into very low speed range. So it's not necessarily true that there'll only be one entry for the participant in each of the categories. Okay, so let's go back to the query builder, and now we're going to look a little bit at how events can be displayed in here. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. Get rid of this definition. So if I want to delete things from the query, I can click on the X in the box and it will delete that entire category. If I want to change to a different category, so in this case I want to now look at events, I can click on the variable name, go to events, go to the event table, and I'll just supersede the event that was originally chosen. In this case I'll choose event severity 1, and right now it's set to give me all values. What I really want to see are just the crashes and near crashes at this time, so I'm going to select none, go back and reselect crash and near crash. And now if I also want to see, let's say, like what the secondary tasks that the driver were engaged in, I can choose secondary task. And there's quite a long list of these that were classified by the video reductionists, so I'm going to select none. Maybe I'll choose just the first 5 for this example. Close. And if I submit those results, it'll return to me a list of events. So in this case there were around 860 events returned. If I go now to the records page, this is essentially a list of all the records that were returned. I can view the content of that event, both the video and the data reduction, by loading up this event, and it begins to play. If I want to look at the event analysis, I can click on that tab, very similar to our event viewer functionality, and so I can view them in this interface as well. All right. Hopefully you'll agree that the query functionality provides a reasonable way to explore available data and to determine how much data exists that could potentially be used to assess a given research topic or question.
Now that we've gone through a quick demonstration of InSight, I hope you can see there's a wealth of information available here for anyone interested in becoming more familiar with the SHRP2 naturalistic driving data. It is, however, important to remember that InSight is not designed to be a complete data analysis tool or download repository. Current SHRP2 data management policy does not allow for the download of data directly from the website. This policy may change sometime in the future as data administrators become more confident with the data protections afforded by the website, but that's a decision for the Phase 1 Oversight Committee. I also want to reiterate that InSight is and will remain a work in progress throughout the rest of 2014. There are 2 significant data releases coming, one at the end of September and one at the end of December. They will add significant quantities of data to the system. After that time, InSight will be a much more complete representation of the SHRP2 naturalistic dataset. So I hope you've enjoyed this walkthrough of InSight, and as always, the InSight project team welcomes your comments and feedback about how to make the website better. Thanks again for your time.